Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, back with more HOA stories. In this video, a ridiculous homeowner association towed 5 of my work vehicles illegally, despite me not even being an HOA member. Let's dive right into the video. Okay, so let me provide a little background info. I own and operate a small business that offers top-notch mobile detailing services. I have a fleet of vans that my guys use to pick up before starting their routes each day. And let me tell you, my work vehicles are always parked on my property. I never leave them on the street like some commoners. I make sure they are fully in my driveway, so no part of my business vehicles are blocking the sidewalks. Now there is this neighborhood HOA, which I of course have no part in. I made sure to triple reread my closing contract to ensure I was not signing on to any HOA. I've read so many horror stories about these power-hungry associations that there's no way anyone could convince me to join one willingly. Even though I've never been a part of this HOA, I've still had multiple run-ins with their board members, nothing major though. But I've heard from other neighbors and people a few blocks over that they have a very long rap sheet of being entitled and overreaching. I run into a lot of people when I'm out for my jogs, and I've already heard several stories, which made me even more glad that I never signed on to this HOA. For reference, a sweet elderly lady who lives on the other side of the street from me told me that they limit how many garden gnomes she can have in her backyard behind her wooden fence. How they found out that I had gnomes in my backyard, I'll never know. I didn't want to pay the fine, so I just took them down. Can you believe the audacity? Even though I've had several minor encounters with these HOA board members, they've been silent and unseen for a while, so I figured they must have realized I'm not a part of their HOA. But oh boy, have I never been so wrong. After returning home from running errands and grabbing some food for the week, I see 5 of my work vans are missing. Not 1 or 2, but 5 of them are just completely missing. I knew it was not any of my employees because they had all returned their keys for the day already. My immediate thought was that someone must have stolen my work vehicles. However, stealing 5 vans is excessive and would take a mastermind to plan and coordinate. So I live in a pretty decent neighborhood and I've established good relationships with all of my neighbors. I think to myself, surely there's no way my neighbors would have let someone steal 5 entire vehicles off of my property. Once the pure shock of the situation wears off, I see it. Large tire marks through my grass. Looking at the orientation of the tires, it has to be a tow truck. I decide to call around to local tow companies to see what I can find out. It turns out their HOA had my work vans towed. Can you believe it? All under the false assumption that my property actually fell under their jurisdiction. They ordered the towing without even bothering to confirm the facts. Not only is this highly illegal, but it also causes major issues for me and my business. I'm out of thousands of dollars because there's just not enough manpower for my clients, and this disruption is making me look unreliable as I have to cancel and reschedule so many appointments. Enraged, I stormed over to the HOA office to confront them. Bursting through the door, I found myself face to face with the board members. "What in the world is going on?" I demanded, my voice filled with frustration. The board members exchanged glances, clearly caught off guard by my sudden appearance. One of them, a pompous man with a smug smile, spoke up. "Oh, you must be the owner of those vans. Well, it seems there was a misunderstanding. We thought your property fell under our jurisdiction and decided to have the vans towed. It was an honest mistake." "Honest mistake?" I scoffed. "Do you have any idea how much this has cost me? My business is suffering because of your reckless actions." Another board member, a woman with a condescending tone, chimed in. "Well, it's not our fault that you didn't join the HOA. You should have known better." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These people were completely oblivious to the damage they had caused. "You have no right to tow my vans without proper confirmation." "I got the legal documentation right here," I said, slamming the property maps and contracts onto their table. The board members glanced at the documents, but their dismissive attitude remained. One of them, a middle-aged woman, rolled her eyes and started popping her gum. "Look, we made a mistake. It happens. You will get your vans back and you just have to call the impound lot and follow their instructions." I can feel my face flushing red with anger. Call the impound and follow their instructions? Really? You're refusing to take responsibility for this? I almost screamed. The same woman responded in a chuckle. "Well, we don't have your vans now, do we?" I immediately stormed out of the room. Since it did not take long to realize that I was not getting anywhere with the board, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I contacted the local news station with my story, and of course they were intrigued by the HOA's egregious overstepping and the financial harm they caused to a local business. They practically begged me for an interview and eagerly ran an exposé on the HOA's abusive practices. The headline they chose was "Small Business Devastated by HOA's Entitled Harassment, Costing Thousands in Losses." The news report included all the evidence I provided, leaving no room for doubt about the HOA's blatant disregard for property rights. The community was outraged by the HOA's entitlement. The exposé gained significant public attention, leading to a massive backlash against the HOA. Numerous other members who had suffered from their overbearing behavior but had not been included in the exposé also came forward to share their stories. The HOA's support crumbled overnight as their entitled actions were exposed for all to see. In response to the mounting pressure from the negative publicity and the overwhelming evidence against them, the HOA board was forced to acknowledge their mistake. However, their attempt at making amends was feeble and insincere. They said, "We apologize if our error inconvenienced you and your business. We suppose we can cover the towing costs for you." They said dismissively, but it was too late for their half-hearted apology. They had already shown their true colors by ignoring my previous attempts to resolve the issue. I wanted more than just reimbursement for the towing costs. Realizing that I was not the only victim of the HOA's entitled tendencies, I decided to rally the community and teach the HOA a lesson they would never forget. Basically, I organized a massive community meeting, inviting other non-HOA residents and business owners who had experienced similar harassment from the HOA. The turnout was incredible, with a multitude of individuals sharing their stories of oppression and overreach by the same group of entitled HOA individuals. So together we formed a united front and demanded a sincere apology from the HOA and its board members. We also insisted that the HOA reimburse all damages and issue a public statement promising to respect property boundaries and cease their overreaching actions. The HOA found themselves under an immense amount of pressure and faced the looming threat of legal consequences, not just from me and my business, but from multiple other parties as well. The HOA had no ground to stand on, nor did they have legal counsel willing to back them. Faced with the prospect of numerous lawsuits, the HOA begrudgingly issued a public apology on their website through the local news. They had no other choice but to reimburse me for all the towing costs and the substantial revenue my business had lost during the entire fiasco. The victory was sweet, but it was just the beginning. The community members who had stood together to take down the HOA remained in close contact. We celebrated our triumph with a grand block party where all the business owners generously provided food and entertainment for the children. Honestly, it was a joyous occasion, a celebration of our victory over the entitled HOA. Meanwhile, the HOA found themselves under intense scrutiny from the local government. With their actions exposed and their entitlement laid bare, they were forced to operate within the strict confines of the law. The bad press surrounding the HOA had inadvertently become great press for my business. I was inundated with new clients who admired the stand I had taken against the HOA's entitled behavior. The HOA got what they deserved and I reveled in the sweet taste of revenge. And the next one is a fantastic malicious compliance story. But before we start, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. Back in the 2008 housing crisis, I did some work on the site for a customer's computer system. We got to talking and he had a cheap one-bedroom duplex for rent that was too good to be true. It was a detached garage and, well, it was converted to a one-bedroom little apartment, and it was as plain and basic as they come. The actual house was being rented out and he was charging the full amount priced for the area, which was high, so the little garage conversation was pure profit for the landlord. I signed a lease for a fixed price that was almost half of what the going rate was for one-bedroom apartments in the area. It was no frills, plain as can be, with the cheapest appliances and amenities possible. Light fixtures from the early 80s, cheapest faucets and countertops money could buy. You get the visual. The elderly landlord and I had an arrangement. I could fix it up so long as I could keep the rent low, and he would allow me to pay for the remaining balance on upgrades if/when things broke. Years go by and I'm still in this one-bedroom garage conversation and making progress on updating the features. Kitchen faucet is gone, new fancy sprayer head faucet with a bar-style glass cleaner installed. Old toilet replaced with a water-saving tank and bidet installed, 80s lights are gone, LED smart home fixtures installed. Around 7 to 8 years go by and my rent is still half of the normal going rate for the area and my landlord is happy with our arrangement. Sadly, he has a heart attack and surgery saves his life. He is no longer able to maintain his active lifestyle and hands the reins of being a landlord to a property management company. This company is as shady and money hungry as they come. They get a percentage of the monthly rent for their role in taking over the landlord's duties. They immediately hate me and my rental agreement from the start. The month they take over, my rent goes up the maximum limit of 10% plus 5% the cost of living increase for 1 year. I'm not happy with this as this is a significant bump in my costs. I suck it up, but as a silent protest I stop making upgrades to the house that first year. The 12 months later exactly, I get a notification that my rent will increase another 10% plus 5% cost of living increase. This is yet another blow to my finances, but I cannot really complain as my rent is still well below the average cost for the area. Another 12 months and another 10% plus 5% cost of living, followed by another the following year. This whole time I'd been saving a good portion of my paychecks as a down payment for a house, but these rent hikes were hurting my ability to set aside money for this purpose. My landlord was not happy with the property management company he hired but couldn't get out of his contract because they were doing maintenance and facility repairs like clockwork. Then the pandemic hits and I'd been in this place for 12 years by this point. My rent was still under the average for the area but not by much. Seeing as this was now just a crappy one-bedroom apartment, I was now looking for houses to buy to get me out of this rent gouging arrangement I was in. Right at the peak of the pandemic in 2020, a pipe burst in the kitchen and floods the floors, ruining the crappy cabinets, the carpets and the furniture I had nearby. I had renter's insurance that covered most of the costs to what I had lost. Not the nicest furniture, but my couch was a total loss, my desk, entertainment center and my speaker were severely damaged. In comes property management to assess the repairs and gut out the damaged woods and carpets. I offer to pay for the upgraded wood and countertops as well as request hardwood floors. But nope, they deny my requests. I offer to do the work myself as I'm fairly handy, again denied with an actual written letter stating I'm not to do any work or maintenance on the apartment. So then I contact my landlord who has his hands tied because this was the arrangement we had. I'm at a loss of what to do because this property management company is not setting me up with a temporary place to live. Doing all the work while I'm working from home to watch my possessions, there is a literal door-sized hole in my wall as they spend 2 weeks fixing all the damage. They also throw out my upgraded faucet, which was undamaged and worked perfectly fine, the upgraded sink, the light fixtures, the tile work I had done, the bathroom faucet, which was not even part of the floor damage. They then removed an outlet originally part of the apartment to save on costs. I was pissed at them and complained via letters, via phone calls and talking to the maintenance supervisor. It took 2 full months to do all the repairs and at the end they sent me a notice that my rent was going up due to some loophole in the neglect the apartment was in and not reported. I was done with this BS and I pooled my resources, called in all the favors I could and found the house I wanted. I then gave 30-day notice to leave at the end of my lease along with an invoice of all the repairs I made to the apartment over the 12 years I was there. I attached a copy of my original lease agreement, a copy of all photos I took of before and after repairs I made, a bill of the cost and a request of a refund of the past 6 months of additional rent hike due to neglect like they stated in the letter. I had a running tally of with all the receipts, work performed and the cost of not being allowed to live in motel during the work being performed to over $9,700. At the same time, I submitted all this to the courts as I knew they would contest all of it. My landlord was on my side during the court hearing, giving testimony he in fact allowed me in the rental lease agreement that I could do my own repairs. I won within 4 hours and was awarded $4,700. And by the way, the judge removed all billable hours I included. The judge was harsh to the lawyer for the property management, saying his client must obey the law and put a tenant up for housing during construction. And then, nearly 4 years later, I finally got my lump sum including penalties and late fees, which totaled up to $7,500. Sadly, my old landlord passed away and his properties passed to his son, who immediately fired the property management company sometime early last year. Anyway, the next one is titled, Almost Got Arrested for Swimming in a Pool. I, 28 male, autistic, just wanted to spend some time relaxing in our local swimming pool. I had black goggles and liked to swim underwater, and I also liked to simply rest against a poolside and chill. Also, I was the only adult male without any kids in this pool, which is clearly for everyone to use, shallow at one end, deep at the other, etc. And well, I'm just resting by the poolside when a manager, not even a lifeguard, a damn manager, comes over to me and tells me my presence and behavior is making someone uncomfortable. He explained that someone had complained that me diving underwater and simply sitting by the side of the pool was apparently unacceptable, because I was apparently doing this to peep on kids. He told me this in a non-accusatory tone and seemed to sound as confused as me about this. At first I thought I was upsetting some over-worried parent, and being a parent myself, I felt horrible. I explained that I was just relaxing by the poolside, offered to take off my goggles to put them at ease, and even wanted to apologize to this person. The manager seemed to accept this and presumably went back to the parent to let them know that I was sorry for upsetting them. About 10 minutes passed and the manager was back telling me the police had arrived. I was shocked and asked if it was about me. The manager said yes and that they wanted to talk to me. This is when I met the entitled dad for the first time. A big guy, maybe early to mid-30s and pretty buff looking. This is the only time he spoke to me, and all he said was, "You better go quietly or I will tell everyone here that you're a pedophile." He walked away before I could reply, and the manager let me out of the pool. I felt tempted to flip this Kevin the Bird as I walked by, but I kept my cool and just left. I then get to the locker rooms and 2 policewomen were waiting. Fortunately for me, they were really nice and friendly with me the whole time. After grabbing a towel, they started asking me what happened and what I was doing. I was honest and told them that I was just trying to relax and had no idea that I was upsetting this person just by being there. I even told them that I was autistic, which led to one of the officers telling me that they had a family member who was also autistic. They then asked me for my details to run me through their database. While that went on, the entitled dad walked by and one of the officers asked to talk with him. He agreed and they went elsewhere. I got changed back into my clothes, and as I was coming out of the changing room, the entitled dad was in my way with his back to me. I couldn't quite hear what he was saying over the other people in the room, but I did hear him rather loudly order his kids to stay put while he went to get changed. He walked off without seeing me and I left the locker room. The police stayed with me in the lobby until their database came back. Of course it came back that I had no history of crime, and the gym staff had told the officers that I had no history of disturbing other people and that I was free to go. However, the entitled dad was hanging around near the back of the lobby watching me. The police saw this too and offered to give me a ride home. Since I had walked to the gym, I accepted since I was pretty shell-shocked by the whole ordeal and worried that this guy would try something on me on my way home. All in all, this was a really scary experience and I'm still shaking typing this. I'm just glad the manager and the police were professional enough to let me speak my piece. I should mention there were other parents in the pool who didn't care about my presence. Another dad and his kids were playing right next to me and they didn't care. Update to the story, I went back to the gym today to see if the same manager was on duty. Thankfully he was, and he took me aside to explain his perspective on things. I will call him Mike, not his real name. Apparently, this Kevin seemed to be trouble from the start, being very irate with Mike as well as other staff members. The only reason it was not the lifeguards dealing with him was because they were scared of him, being 17 to 18-year-olds, and this guy was an early 30s looking buff man. Even Mike, who was roughly the same age as the Kevin, was concerned with his behavior, thinking if he got near me that we would end up throwing hands. When Mike first told him that I'd offered to leave my goggles off so I wouldn't dive underwater, that apparently wasn't good enough, and then when the police arrived, Mike had actually just told them that he was concerned for my safety, nothing about the predator accusation. No wonder they were so nice. I then asked Mike if at any point he thought I really was a threat to the kids. He laughed and said no, saying that when I had mentioned I had kids of my own, the fact that I offered to apologize and attempt to de-escalate things, he could tell I was not dangerous. He was thinking more about me being safe than whether or not I was a threat. The police seemed to think that way too. At one point after I left, the Kevin was getting mouthy again, and a receptionist chewed him out for his actions. I wish I could have seen that, by the way. Then Mike asked if I made it home okay, and I told him about the police giving me a ride. Their car was not inside of the building. He was relieved and hoped this event had not put me off coming back. I do plan to come back to this gym now, since I can count on the staff to have my back. But yeah, everything is cool now, and everybody knows what a twat this guy is, so I don't think I'm in any further trouble. By the way, to answer why I left, I was given the choice whether to go or not, so no one told me to leave. I was planning on leaving a few minutes before this encounter anyway, so I didn't mind too much. It was only when the police officer caught the Kevin staring at me that they offered to give me a ride. Since someone in the comments suggested I ask for it, I asked if they had a police log number for what happened. Mike said that they weren't given one but offered to chase it up for me. I declined, not really wanting to put myself any further into an issue that seems more or less resolved anyway. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.